Well, I'm on my own again, and I was a bit low recently because I was looking at one or two really sad videos, and Kaz got really worried about me, the way she does. Because, you know, we do get low, don't we? Not when there's anything really the matter. Not in regards to our life, anyway. Kerry says I have Catholic guilt. Now, seeing I haven't been a Catholic since I was a little girl, I went to, what do they call it, those schools when you're brought up by nuns, convent. But she says I feel guilty for everybody. And it's not that I feel guilty for everyone, but I do feel pain. And I was thinking about this Christmas time. You know, I got a printer on Monday, and we went into this store to return 2 items. So because we returned these 2 items which were useless, then I only had to add a very tiny bit, and I got this lovely printer. But the store was full to brim of all these things which are going to get sold this Christmas. And, you know, we owe money, we're in debt. And we have been now for, well, a short number of years, but a number of years anyway. And I suddenly thought today of all the people who are going to buy Christmas on credit. You know, I mean, praise God, I don't have credit now because they won't let me have it. But, you know, I'm really glad. I'm really, really glad. Anyway, I've got to start feeling it, Kerry says. I've got to stop worrying about everybody else. And I've got to start being happy. So, while she's not in, I'll tell you a little story. No, it's not really a story. It's just about our Kaz being born. So all of you men, if you want to leave now, you might as well. It's about the pregnancy, really. It wasn't anything else. I had a coil. So, you know, you don't want children, do you, if you have the coil? Anyway, I happened to feel that feeling that we women get when I knew I was pregnant. And I went to the doctors and said, I'm pregnant. And he said, no, Jessica, you're not. And he said, you've had 1 or 2 shocks recently. He said, that's what it is. You know, when your period's late. Well, I had 1 or 2 shocks, really. My mother had died, you know, and that was sad. Very sudden. Came back from holiday and she died that night. And I'd been run over. Not exactly run over, I'd been pinned to a bridge. You know when you see a car and it's heading towards you, and instead of you doing the sensible thing, which is either to stand still or get out of the way, I kept on walking, didn't I? So he'd oversteered and he pinned me to the bridge. That hurt a bit, I can tell you. And so one of these few of these things had happened. Anyway, I said, no, I'm pregnant. He said, you can't be. I said, well, you might say that, but I'm pregnant. Anyway, nowadays they have these tests that you can find out immediately. You know, well, you didn't 20 odd years ago. You had to wait a bit. So I waited. And in the end, I thought, I'm waiting no longer. You have to excuse me, there's a telephone. Sorry about this. Sorry, love. Sorry about that. That was just, well, I won't tell you who. But it was alright, it was nice. So, to get back, I went to the health centre and I said I want a pregnancy test. And she said, well, are you sure? And I said, yeah. So they did. They tested me, didn't they? And she came back and she said, yeah. Well, I burst out crying. And she said, what's the matter? And I said, well, I've got the coil. And she went, oh my goodness. Should I better go and get the doctor? Anyway, a bit later. Now, I didn't go. Oh, I remember. I went back to see him about an hour later. But in between times, I went and got my husband. And I said, right, for once, you're going to be in on this from the start. Because you know some men, they don't want to be involved, do they? Well, Colin were a bit that way. Anyway, we went. And, oh, I forgot to tell you, another thing that nurse said was, do you have grown-up family? I thought, well, how old do I look? You know, I mean, it was 22 years ago. And, anyway, he came and he said, right, get in that room. He wasn't one for mincing words, weren't that doctor? Well, I'm sort of saying, will it hurt? And he says, well, what hurts? I said, well, what you're about to do. He says, I've already done it. Well, he'd already removed the thing, hadn't he? Now, I think on quiet they hoped that the pregnancy, won't call it a baby then, shall we? Pregnancy would have finished them. But our God had different ideas, didn't he? In a minute I'm going to have to shut up again because Kez is about to walk through the door. She was very quick doing my shopping. I'll tell you what, when you're dieting it doesn't take you long to do your shopping. Hang on a moment. Sorry about that. Do you know what she's gone? Look what she's bought me. Can you see that? A faux Ferrero Rocher. And then, oh, there's 6. I think there are 5 in that. Isn't that nice? Now that's because I was upset. I should get upset more. No, I shouldn't. So we can share those later. Anyway, to get back to the story. So I found myself pregnant. And at the time he said it's 1 in every 200 gets pregnant with the coil. I thought, well, I wish somebody had told me that in the first place. But anyway, it was a bit upsetting at first. No, thank you. Sit down. Sit down, thank you. Sit down, thank you. She's not sat down, so she might go off again. It was upsetting, and I can't pretend that it wasn't. But you begin to get used to the idea, don't you? And then we got to winter, and it was all cold and icy. And this particular day, night should I say, actually it was night time when it happened, I was desperate to have a wee. Absolutely desperate. But it wouldn't come. It would not come. Anyway, I phoned up the doctor and they said, well, it does sometimes happen when you're so far along, you know. Have a hot bath. I thought, you have a hot bath. I want to you know what. Anyway, in the end, nothing worked. And so they said, can you get yourself to the hospital? And, oh, I remember that journey. There was ice on the road. And you know when the snows turn to sludge and then it's frozen again? Well, the car kept going between the ice. Oh, it was horrible. And I got there. We got there, should I say. And this nurse came to me and she said, well, you know, we normally have a hot bath. I said, I've already had a hot bath. I don't need another one. And she said, right, fair enough, I'll get you sorted. And she took me into this little room. I said, is it going to hurt? And she said, no. She said, I once had a catheter done. Catheter. And she said, and it hurt me. And I vowed no one else would ever feel pain from me. And I was just concerned, not because it hurt, but because Kerry, well, it wasn't Kerry then, was it? It was Tina was outside, and I didn't want her to hear me cry, you know. Anyway, within a minute, I am crying, because I thought I was wetting myself. And then she said, it's okay, I've got it all sorted. Well, apparently, Kerry had sat on the bladder. And so as she grew bigger, very intimate boys, I hope we're not still watching. As it grew bigger, the bladder couldn't expand. Anyway, I was put into bed, had one of these dolly bags. I don't know if some of you know what it is, but ladies, if you can imagine what I've just had done, well then you carry it around in a bag. Anyway, this doctor came and he said, you've had me up since 7 o'clock researching this. He says, it's 1 in every 300 gets this. I thought, 1 in 200, and now 1 in 300. Yeah, that's me. And apparently it wasn't very common. And do you know, they went and took my blood, and they dropped some of my blood. I always remember this. They dropped some of my blood on the white sheet. And you know, I was in hospital for 5 days, and they never ever took that white sheet off, and that blood were always there. Well, it was Christmas time when it happened, and you know, it was the only Christmas in living memory that I had everything prepared. I'd never got things prepared beforehand, ever. I was always at the last week, because Colin would always take me shopping. It would always be the week before Christmas. And we'd go to Blackpool. Talk about that another time. Anyway, this particular time, I don't know why, I had everything prepared. You see, God knows, doesn't he? You know, he knows when these things are going to happen, and he gets it all sorted for us. Anyway, went home. Time went on, as it does. And then came the day. Well, in our country that particular time, it was, whatnot. Oh, can't think of the word. When you elect your Prime Minister. Well, it only turned out that she wanted to come, didn't she? No, she was due, that's right. She was due on the day of the election, but she came on a Sunday. And I was reading a story to the children. Well, my waters broke, didn't they? And so I got new tights on, new everything. Only I got downstairs and it did it again, didn't it? Anyway, a friend of mine, a very kind friend, she took me to the hospital. Well, I'd never ever been like that before. I don't know if any of you ladies have, but when you actually don't have any water left inside, and the baby kept going from side to side, front to front, every time she went over a bump, that's what happened. Anyway, I finally got to hospital, and they promised me faithfully, because my doctor had said I could have a tattoo if I wanted. But then it turned out that he said that the safety aspect of it wasn't really right for a woman of my age. I was only 31. Anyway, I went with it. I let him do it. But I said, I'll go into hospital, but only if I can do what I want. And that meant walking around and doing whatever I wanted, thank you very much. Well, we got this bossy nurse, didn't we? And she said, when you get in bed, Mrs. Wilson, I can't have you. No, she said, I can't keep having people cleaning up after you. Excuse me, I cleaned up after myself. Anyway, in the end I went. And then the time came and she was born. And I did take gas and air. And then I hit the ceiling. Have you ever had that experience? When all of a sudden you hit the ceiling and you're looking down at yourself and you think, is that me down there? And I thought, I'm not taking this no more. And there were only 4 pains, which I suddenly thought, hang on, don't like this. And she was born. Now, I did love her. Don't misunderstand me. I did love her. But it was only that week. I came home the day after. I insisted. I weren't stopping in there. And wasn't the best hospital of the lot. And then I got home and we let the children stop at home and look after me. Each one had their turn, so to speak, because my kids were born 6 years different for some reason. And then on voting day, that was the day when she was due, everyone was at home then. But the day after, they all went back. And I've never had the experience before in my life, but I was suddenly, I put her in my hands. Now you know I'm a Christian, but I weren't that balmy then. And I put her in my hands and I raised her above my head. And I'm dancing around and she's in my arms. Oh, I loved her. Oh, I loved her so much. And somebody told me years afterwards that that's what they did in the Old Testament, that when the babies were born, they lifted them up to God, you know, and they dedicated them to God. Well, I didn't know that. All I know is that I love my lass. And from that day to this, seeing that she's in the kitchen now, we'll cut it very short. Well, as short as I can do it. She's been my lass. Never told a lie in her life. Have you ever had a kid like that? I know you think I'm kidding you, but no. Never told a lie in her life. And she gave up her whole career to look after me. So am I blessed or am I blessed? So that's your story for today. Alright. Right lads, you can come back in the room now. It's all finished with. Okay. You take care everyone. See you soon. Bye bye and God bless.